23rd, if everyone could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You need a timer.
Okay, we will go right into our open forum, and I will remind everyone that we will limit the speakers to 3 minutes. We'll ask that there'll be no comments or a direct addressing of personnel litigation or negotiation. I would also ask that you refrain from any obscenity, vulgarities, or other breaches of respect. Also, to comply within the time limits. And I would now like to, and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this. Is it Susan?
Susan Ruza?
Susan Ruza? Raza, okay. And if you could come on up, give us your name and your address, if you don't mind.
Just your town's fine.
Just push
Yeah.
the button.
Susan Raza from Newport, also former student here, 50-some-odd years ago.
Welcome back.
I got so lost, I'm like, where the heck is, I had to have somebody show me. Anyway, I digress. I will not need my whole 3 minutes. Good evening to all. My name is Susan Raza. As I stated before, I am from Newport. I'm also a representative of the Women Project, and like I said, a past student. Normally, I would go after one of the next speakers. So remember my testimony when you hear what comes. BS is easy to spot. You can see the fill lines in the eyes. Blow that dog whistle, hear it clear. The ignorance patrol is near. Blow that dog whistle, say the words that tingle the spine and rally the herd. Blow that dog whistle, tell all the lies, but keep them straight. For when it comes time for the pearly gates, blow that dog whistle, say God told me to, say it proudly, but show me a clue. Blow that dog whistle, show me the Bible verse where Jesus said, I'd rather be straight, not gay, trans, or dead. Blow that dog whistle, tell them what they want to know and feel, but to heck with what the child wants or needs. So blow that dog whistle, try to ban books, demonize the different and foreign, for knowledge and power, and this scares the bejeebers out of the Christian right, GQP, Heritage Foundation, Koch brothers, etc. So spew your filth, but take to heart. We know who and what you are. We see that your eyes are full. So y'all be yourselves, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Robert Chiaradio. Thank you.
Good evening. Robert Carradillo, Westerly. This district's transgender policy attempts to make parents think that you have the best interests of all students at heart, when in fact, it discriminates against 99% of this district's students, especially our girls, by placing them in uncomfortable, unsafe, and unfair positions. Cowering to ride, you have shamelessly sold out Tiverton's girls and boys. There are 6 pillars of ride's untruthful and unlawful transgender guidance that you must change within your own policy, which many Tiverton parents may not be aware of. Biological boys using the same bathrooms and locker rooms as girls, rooming with girls on overnight field trips, competing with or against girls athletically, compelling teachers to use pronouns, and the keeping of secrets from parents, maybe the most egregious one, regarding social transitioning of their own kids in secondary school, which is specifically referred to on page 4 of your policy number 1183, which cuts out parents completely. That's middle school and high school, where these kids are between 11 and 17 years old. This is of particular interest to the attorneys that I am working with as they are looking at this right now. I would strongly suggest this policy be amended or eliminated, as your cowardly protocol has been exposed. Your Title IX policy is an unlawful rubber stamping of this current administration's attempt to erase women, and I will not allow that to happen. Title IX was written to protect women from discrimination based on sex, not men who identify as women. Get biological boys out of girls' sports. Your own Principal Craven is a member of RIPCOA, the group who supervises Rhode Island Interscholastic League. This group, carrying Rides Water, works along with RIL's Executive Director, Mike Lunny, to allow biological boys to participate in girls' sports. And I know it is happening in Rhode Island. I will never back off on this, as no matter how much a boy wants to be a girl, thinks he's a girl, acts like a girl, he will never be a girl, and vice versa. Same as girls who want to be boys, who identify as boys. It's nothing but truth. Has nothing to do with someone being gay or straight. No one cares. That ship sailed long ago. It's simple common sense. That said,
30 seconds.
thank you. We are working right now to exempt all Tiverton schools from the illegal 2024 Title IX rewrite, and we'll be letting you know very soon which schools are involved, if not all are exempt. Get this on your next agenda, please. Change these policies. Other districts are heeding my advice and readying to do the same thing. Every parent has legal standing in this matter. You would do well to remember that.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have John Jojo Clark.
Good evening. My name is John Clark. I reside in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. I prefer to be addressed as JoJo, they, them pronouns. I'm here tonight to voice my support and encourage this board to follow RIDE's guidelines for transgender and gender diverse students in your school system. At heart, it simply extends the protection and safety set for all students. It mirrors our society's endeavor to fight discrimination, prejudice, and bigotry. I can think of no better place to start. I am 59 years of age. I conduct my life according to my experience, heart, and reasoning. It is by those tenets I choose to stand before you and testify. I am trans, am not evil or belong to a cult. My transition has resulted in a much richer life, mentally, creatively, and socially. Some here would care for you to start a witch hunt, where there are no witches to be found. Though I do not know them well to speak of them void of heart, I can clearly hear misdirected fear, condemnation, and persecution aimed at the innocent, which this board is charged with the protection and safety of. And for what reason are they being targeted? For their right of self-expression. Your due diligence is civically important here. I was raised in post-segregated South and know quite well how bigotry is preserved. Dehumanization, exaggerations, and ignorance reinforced by separation so that experience may never unseat the narrative. This fire is being fanned for the preservation of customs, not for the care of students today and those to come. The smoke of conspiracies and interpreted facts or interpreted statistics you will likely hear tonight are too vast for me to address one by one. They can only be cleared by reasoning and vetted research, which the state's diligence has consciously done with the RIDE guidelines, additionally adhering to Title IX of the U.S. Education Amendment. No good path forward in history of time has ever been resolved by discrimination and isolation. I am hopeful that you choose to acknowledge the rights, protection, and existence of all students, that you support expression and teach the existing diversity of our world uncensored,
30 seconds.
that you allow teachers their trained profession without being forced to become adjunct policing for parents. By following RIDE's guidelines for transgender and gender diverse students, you will lay the groundwork for healthier students in how they see themselves and treat their peers, remain within the law of this land, and perhaps encourage a more empathetic and understanding society for our future. It's your clarity and mission with heart, not
Time.
fear, I am here to call upon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Gloria Christ.
Oh, darn, he left. I am Gloria Christ, and I brought a copy of the guidance of Title IX, just in case someone hasn't read it. I live in Tiverton, and I am here to talk about the fear that the gentleman who clearly was so afraid he left the room. When we talk about book banning and discriminating against transgender and LGBTQ students, it's essential to provide a well-rounded rebuttal. We talk about freedom of expression and thought, educational integrity. Banning books that feature LGBTQ plus characters or themes compromises educational integrity. It also impedes on First Amendment rights. All children deserve to be seen and heard. It is their civil right. Freedom of speech and expression is a core American value. It's protected under the First Amendment. How ironic that we have a group of people who base their hate and intolerance because they're afraid and they want their First Amendment rights met, but they want to take them away from everyone else. I want to talk about the impact on mental health and well-being. Mental health risks, discriminatory policies and practices against transgender and LGBTQ plus students contribute to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide within these communities. When we have individuals that are promoting hate and intolerance, those rates go up and the risks go up. Safe and inclusive schools is the rule. It is the rule. All students deserve a safe and supportive learning environment. It has been proven that educational outcomes and equity are greatly impacted when you have inclusive policies and curricula that affirm LGBTQ plus identities, and they're linked to better educational outcomes. When students feel safe and accepted, they're more likely to succeed academically. They will attend school and engage positively with their peers. We talked about civil rights, ethical responsibilities, LGBTQ plus bullying prevalence. Right now, 75.4% of LGBTQ students in grades 6 through 12 reported experiencing verbal harassment,
30 seconds.
threats because of their sexual orientation, physical harassment, and cyberbullying. Had the gentleman not left the room, I would have said to him that he is irrelevant. And it's more terrifying that he has become obsessed with adolescents' gender, genitalia, and their sexual preference. Thank you.
Thank you. Aubrey Planets?
Do I need to put, there we go, fantastic. Hi everyone, my name is Aubrey Planets. My pronouns are she, they, and I am from Providence, Rhode Island. I just want to let you know the reason why I use she, they pronouns. While I often present as extremely feminine, I don't believe in being confined to the society definitions of normal for any gender. My pronouns reflect my belief that identity is personal, fluid, and I am grateful for the spaces and the people who respect that. This wasn't always the case when I was a child. Public schools must represent and protect diversity of their students. Every student, regardless of their gender identity, deserves to feel safe, respected, and included. Sorry. When I hear people say boys are boys and girls are girls, and that's just how it is, it's an oversimplification of a complex issue. Gender norms, as we all know, are a social construct, and that is just a social construct and a truth, as I've heard the gentleman say. It is our job to protect children, whether they want to wear dresses or play baseball or basketball, or in my case, both those sports when a girls' team didn't exist. It is our job to protect those students if they want to wear pink, if they want to go by she, they, them, he. It is not our job to tell a little girl or a little boy what they cannot be. It is our job as an education system, and it is our job as adults to protect them, encourage them, answer their questions respectfully, and encourage them also to do the same with those around them. If we are going to allow our students to hear this kind of nonsense, they are only going to inflict that on their current and fellow students. I hope that we as adults can protect these kids and encourage them to be good people to one another and also be good people to them. We owe this to them. You owe this to so many kids to protect them. As parents, you owe that. I don't have kids. I would love to have kids. It's much harder for me and my partner. And I want to know that when they go to school, they are safe. And that the people there respect us as parents and who we are. And just because you get rid of a policy, as some people would like, it does not erase people. They will always be there, whether there's a policy or not. And that policy doesn't have to be in place for you to be good people. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon McNamara.
Shannon McNamara in Tiverton. I want to talk about how when you get yourself down a social media rabbit hole, you end up where our second speaker was, because yes, he left. And how AI can contribute to this and et cetera, but I only have 3 minutes. Because you can see what this type of thinking does. Once you start watching this vitriol, it's fed to you over and over again until you're obese with ignorance and hate. And then an already marginalized group of children become the boogeyman of this week's Facebook algorithm. So instead of explaining the science of this, I'll instead say this: it's okay to be different. So what if you get labeled weird? The weird kids become the artists, the musicians, the designers, and the engineers. The bullies become the leaders of their own narrow-minded agenda because they refuse to see the beauty in those who are different. Just know that you have many parents, so many who are here tonight, who will stand beside you and in front of you when there are those who want to bulldoze you over. School and youth are fleeting. Put your headphones on or your AirPods in and drown out the madness. You'll be better off, and we will be better off because we have you here with us. That's it.
Thank you very much. We typically would not speak in any kind of response to an open forum item, but I do want to make one very quick statement. In my time in Tiverton, which is quite a while, Tiverton schools have always been safe and inclusive. And as long as I'm here, as long as I'm still in this town, I will always fight, if I must, to preserve that tradition. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would also like to say that I would believe that our administration, our teachers, staff, faculty, make this a great school system to be part of. Everyone should feel included, involved, and cared for. And as a school committee member, I would back that statement as well. So thank you.
It's my last night. But as a citizen and some other positions you might know about, but can't really speak on that behalf. But I agree with you both, Diane and Mike. I categorically reject the statements of the second speaker.
I want to thank everyone that came and spoke tonight, even the one that we didn't agree with. One of the things that I'll always defend is your right to be heard. That being said, having been in the district raising my own child, 15th year on the school board, we are accepting, we are inclusive in this district, and I see no reasons to stop doing that now.
Okay, thank you all. We will now move on to the consent agenda. We have, for approval this evening, our regular session minutes from October 7th, our executive session minutes from October 7th. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. I'll move quickly into chairperson's remarks. I just want to remind everyone who may or may not already be aware that there will be a school committee candidates forum to take place here at the in the auditorium tomorrow evening, 6:30 p.m., and it is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters, as well as a number of other organizations, so the public is welcome to attend. And then I want to just touch briefly on National Principals Month. One of the, things that I would like to see us doing more of is to celebrate the good people that work for our district. We certainly will reserve time later on this year for our teachers, but right now we have National Principals Month, and to call you all out by name, Ms. Donnelly Roach, Mrs. Craven, Mr. Zatoli, Ms. Pont, and Mr. Arujo. The buck stops with you all. You are all responsible for what happens in your building. You all have to deal with the day-to-day, take the shots, keep order in your schools, and keep everyone safe and happy. And then to add in our assistant principals, Mr. Kellett and Mr. Swenson, who are equally and just as important as everyone else, right, at maintaining the order, maintaining the student flow. So I do want to, just shout out to you all. You all work year-round. You're responsible for everything that happens in those buildings, and my hats are off to you. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that? Okay. We will now move on to old business. Approve homeschool requests for the 2024-25 school year. Mrs. Krager?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have parents of 4 students that we are recommending to approve their request for homeschooling. The parents have provided us with the necessary requirements, and they have been contacted, letting them know that they would be recommended for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the homeschool requests as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions?
Come on, I can only do this for a little while.
May I start first, Madam Chair?
Yes, Mike.
Thank you. This list is small. This makes me happy. I do have 2 questions, and you might not know it, and maybe the superintendent does, or maybe not, and it's okay. Do we know where this stands versus last year for the same time frame? I feel like last year at this time frame there was a lot more.
So we are just about the same.
Overall.
Just remember that this year we did send out more letters to families who had requested it in the past, since we had that new policy put in place. So following the policy and being in contact with families who had requested it in the past, we got more of an onslaught at the beginning of the year than we got last year throughout the year.
So this year was just top heavy. There was a lot in the beginning, and it might hopefully just kind of vapor slowly like this is. So if you were to guess, this is probably more what we'll see as the year goes on. Okay. The second thing is, and maybe this is something for the both of you, I know that something people keep asking for is why, and it doesn't have to be, parents do not have to tell us why. They can, though, tell us, right? They can share it with us. So I guess my ask, and maybe my peers can also say something about this, or maybe not. In the future, can we try to get something like a pie chart? And if they give us answers, can we put that in? And if it's unknown, it goes in the unknown piece of the pie, so we can share that. So let's say there's a pie, 25% said it was medical, 15% said it was for they're traveling, they want to be mobile, whatever it may be. Is that something you think we can do so we can be use it to be more transparent? And maybe we can learn something from it. Because I see that a lot. I know it's on social media. Why is that? Why is it happening?
We can put something together at the end of the year, and to be transparent, we don't get the reason most often.
But if we ask, maybe, let's say half of them will give us.
We don't ask.
Okay. Can we legally ask?
It's not part of our policy.
So that would be a policy change? Okay. Thank you. I learned something.
I think those were great questions, Mike, but I do think we do need to respect the rights of parents to take this route. This is, just like many other traditions in Tiverton, it's a long-standing tradition where we have some families who wish to homeschool their children. And by state law, we will abide by that, and certainly that's the right thing to do as well.
And I want to say that I don't disagree with that. I would just like to say, unless it's against the law or illegal, if we ask and they give us an answer, they probably want to give us an answer because they want us to know. And if they say, mind your business, we mind our business.
Okay, do we have any other discussion? All right, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have the accept monetary donation to the Tiverton High School Journalism Club.
Thank you. Yes, I have Mrs. Samantha Palumbo here, who's the advisor for the club, to ask for your vote to accept the donation that was delivered. Come on up, Sam.
So I'm just asking if you could accept a donation from Newport Propane to help support our students' fees for the convention, National Journalism Convention that we're going to in a couple of weeks. So the donation is of $250.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to accept the donation of $250 from the Sherman
ahead.
family through Newport County Propane?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Thank you to the Sherman family.
Thank you.
Thank you once again to the Shermans. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, next we have a diversion program review. Dr. Sanquioni, Mrs. Craven, and Counselor Vasconcellos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to turn this momentarily over to Principal Craven and Councilor Vasconcellos. I just want to give a little background on the diversion program. Put this in place, I think it was either 6 or 7 years ago, and the idea behind it was that students who were vaping, using tobacco, using alcohol, using drugs, and were in school or out of school use of that, especially if it was in school, they came under the influence. Most school systems took the stance that they were going to discipline that child, and that usually was an out-of-school suspension. So it never really addressed the problem, right? And it certainly then hurt the student academically. And the diversion program says, well, no, we're going to keep you in school, and we're going to ask you and your parents to partner with us for about 15 hours with a trained counselor to talk about what that issue is, give you some information on that, and try to change behavior. And so that's been in place for, again, as you've heard me say, about 6 or 7 years. It's generated some great success. I think students really benefit from it. And surprisingly, our numbers are interesting. I don't want to steal the thunder here, so I'm going to ask Principal Craven to come up, and also before she, Councilor Vasconcellos, I guess, is going to take over. So we've had, and I want to compliment you, several counselors come through, and they've all done a good job for our students. Councilor Vasconcellos has been with us now in her 2nd year, and by far, she is the most amazing person we've had. She relates to the students well, she relates to the staff well, and when you have a person like that, students are more likely to engage and accept the help and then become better as a result of that. So, Kelsey, it's great to have you here, and Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, we are very excited to have Kelsey here with us. You know, when we go to prevention trainings, and we find out information about the best way to stop students from substance abuse. And it really is about educating the students, right? That's the best preventative measure. And Kelsey does just that. But again, I want to let her speak, but if you don't know Kelsey, this is Kelsey Vasconcellos, Miss V, as the students call her, and she is our student assistance counselor at Tiverton High School and Tiverton Middle School.
Hi, so I'm Miss V. Basically, that's what all the kids call me. So yeah, I'm a student assistance counselor. So I think the biggest thing for me working with Tiverton is to just meet these kids where they're at, right? It's obvious that there's substance use issues everywhere. It's a real thing. And it's just meeting them where they're at. So the diversion program, personally, from my perspective of working with these kids, both at the middle school and the high school, is it does work. The goal of the diversion program isn't to say, hi, I'm Miss V, and you're going to meet with me for a couple hours, and you're just going to stop smoking, and you're going to stop vaping, and all of these things. The goal is to meet them where they're at, to make them feel heard, to make them feel comfortable about talking about substance use. It's a lot of dust under the rug. Nobody really talks about it. They feel ashamed. They feel scared, and they're getting their answers from their peers, which is scary. So just making them feel comfortable and allowing them a space to kind of just learn even why they're using. I can't tell you how many kids I meet with, and I ask them the million-dollar question. I'm like, so why do you vape? And they're like, I don't know. They have no idea, the majority of them. My friend vapes, or I don't know, or I get anxious, and so I do this and it makes me feel better. And so it's really just like pulling that over and just talking to them and saying like, well, there has to be a reason. And if there is the reason of anxiety, like what are other coping skills that we can do to get you through that? But it's been really awesome. So this is my 3rd year here. My first year, I kind of started off at a weird time. So I started like after Christmas, but this is my second full year. And I've already seen, when I did like all of these numbers, it was 118 students here at the high school. I'm already at 122 here at the high school. And that's 2 months. So, and of those, the majority of those students are one of 3 things. They're either substance users themselves, their peers are substance users, or their families are substance users. Then I usually have like the random little ones that kind of just have like relationship problems or whatever, but those are the heavy hitters. In the state of Rhode Island, they've done tests and assessments, and 1 in 4 students in Rhode Island have a family member that has substance use disorder. So if you look at a class, there's a few in there, and a lot of them go unseen. With the numbers in Tiverton, it's skyrocketed. So I don't know if you want to just like fast forward to like the charts, but we can skip all this stuff. I already talked about that. There was one right there at the marijuana. So if you go back to the marijuana one, so marijuana is kind of like this big thing this year, these past 2 months. Last year it was a lot of nicotine, a lot of vaping in the bathrooms, all of that. But now it's the marijuana. Marijuana carts are what they're smoking. It's not so much like the marijuana, the plant. They have the carts. They're getting it at dispensaries. They're getting it off the street. It's very scary. But the bullet to the left that's all bolded, youth who use marijuana are less likely to finish high school or even earn a college degree. It's scary. It's so true. I tell the students all the time, for example, if you smoke on a Sunday and you come to school and you're super tired and you can't retain the information, or you're falling asleep in class, you're still high. You still have that in your system. It's not off your system, so you can't focus in school. You can't get your homework done. You can't pay attention. And it's so true. But if you keep going over, so this one's kind of crazy. So this is my 3 years here. So it's categorized 2022, again, that's December to June, and then 2023 full year, and then the last one is literally 2 months. So if you look at the numbers, it's skyrocketed, right? So there's a lot more marijuana right now, and that goes by the number of the students, right? So vaping. So there's 7 that are reporting that they're actual users of alcohol. Alcohol's not that big much in Tiverton. And then we have 69 that are reported users of nicotine, whether that's vapes or the nicotine pouches, the Zins, those are big now. And then 42 reported of marijuana use. And then there's another slide, the next one, that's just a little bit about me. Diversion program, we already talked about that. So this one's kind of cool. So this is from my first year to here. So I've had a 20% increase in peer and self-referrals, which is really awesome. I love when they come to me. I love when the peers tell them, hey, there's Miss V. I think you should talk to her. She's not going to judge you. She's going to listen to you. So 20%. And then I've had 35% increase in substance-using students. That's just at the high school. That's a lot. And then 61% increase of students that I've even just seen since 2022. So they're coming. And then this is the big one. So this breaks it down from the 3 years, but then it talks like, so total number of students I've seen, and then the blue is the substance users, and then the green is what we call COSAP, so family of substance use. So just in my 2 months here at the high school, I've already accomplished what I did in a whole year last year of 118 students. So it's very interesting this year, very busy. But I think the biggest thing, like for my role, is the prevention and the intervention. So even just doing lunch tables, I did a lunch table today, we did a bulletin board, just them being aware of the knowledge that there's somebody in the building that they can talk to about substance use, knowing the harms, knowing that they can talk about it, knowing that there's other things that they can do, getting them involved in a leadership group where they don't have to vape, and just feeling comfortable with themselves without the substance. So it's been good. Busy but good. Thank you.
Oh, do you mind? Yeah, I think we may have some questions.
Yeah, I'm like, bye.
Deb, did you want to start? Go ahead. No, Opening up to
I
who wants
have
it
a
first.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So there's, if you go back a few slides, there appears to be a rise in the use of different substances or which might mandate an intervention. Or do you think it's maybe they're more socialized to you and you're actually learning more of the environment of the school? I'm just curious what your theory of the case is, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, honestly, right? So the population here, so now that they've seen me for a little while, they're like,
Right.
oh, okay, like she's sticking around. Prior to me, it was kind of like an up and down. So the student assistance counselors were here and then they would leave, right? So now they're like, okay, she's still here. I can talk to her. She listens. My friend brought me in here. So I think they're just feeling a little bit more comfortable. So I think that they're feeling comfortable enough to report that they're a user. In the beginning, I was kind of like, so my friend vapes, and just kind of like tiptoeing around it, where now the students are actually comfortable saying, like, I vape. So that's huge that they're able to identify that.
There's an assessment that I know is done, I think it's every 2 years of student, there's a lot of behaviors that are measured in it, but tobacco and alcohol and drug use are among them. Are these numbers consistent with the results for Tiverton? They look like they are from what I can remember of them from those studies. Sue seems to be nodding her head. I'm not sure.
Very much so. If you look at the data, alcohol use is declining, marijuana use is obviously increasing across the board.
Which reflects society to some extent.
Right. The students will tell you, when I ask the question, like, why marijuana versus alcohol, it's cheaper and it's more accessible. That's the answer I get, so.
Okay, thank you. That's it from me.
I'm just curious, are the students self-reporting that I have someone at home that uses? Is that how you're finding that information out?
Yeah. So they'll come to me. So I also run like a bunch of different groups here. So one of the groups that I run are we call them COSAP, so children of substance abusing parents. And so I run the group and we kind of just talk about like, you didn't cause it, you can't control it, right? Like all of these things that feel difficult for children who have that in their family. So when I started that group, it's just interesting that they just offer it up. Like they'll say like, oh, my aunt, she drinks a lot, or, my dad's in jail because of this, or, my mom smokes weed to go to bed every night, or my mom's out of a rehab. So they're really open about it.
Well, you clearly make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And they're opening up, but that's interesting. Because that's what I would imagine. It's just self-reporting, and I don't know, maybe because they trust you, it's nice to tell someone.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So that was really interesting. And I guess you have to gain success through failure. And I know that every school district in the country has this problem, right? There's no school that has no substance abuse problems. When I was a kid, both my parents smoked, and both of my parents liked to drink after 5 o'clock. So my dad would get home, my mother would give my dad a drink, my mother would drink, normal. I smoked my freshman year a little bit, and I probably drank alcohol in high school. And as I got older, I didn't smoke, thankfully. And we didn't have anyone in school to talk to, right? And no one told us not to do it. In fact, we had a courtyard, and we got to smoke in there. I'm sure people in this room probably know what I'm talking about. So my question would be around the ZINs, right? Okay, so I'm hearing this a lot. I have a daughter that's a freshman. Is this more popular with boys than girls?
So it's equal.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I will say, though, a lot of the nicotine users are also using marijuana.
Okay.
So, and what they're also doing is like, they're using the marijuana, but then they're also following it up with hitting their vape because it intensifies the high.
Okay.
So they're doing both. There are like a good amount of like male athletes that do use like the ZIN. They say that they like it and they feel like it's discreet.
Is this replacing, like when I was a kid, they had the little pouches and you stuck it in there, but it was in a pouch?
Yeah.
Now it's like thin, right?
Yeah.
And you might not know someone has it in their mouth, right?
And it's pure nicotine.
Pure nicotine.
And
It's
so,
not, okay.
and Zins haven't even been around long enough for people to know what's going to happen. So it's going to cause mouth cancer and all of those things.
Are they,
but
and they're flavored?
they
You
have,
can
like-
buy flavored Zins,
Yeah,
right?
they have like mint and stuff
Okay.
like that, yeah.
Okay, interesting. That's something that's on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the last question, e-cigarettes themselves versus vape. Popularity is vaping?
Vaping.
Vaping.
Yeah.
Not even close or close?
It's more so the vaping so the e-cigarettes are like the really bulky ones. If you don't know, like the really, really, like the old school ones, they're bulky. You need like the cartridge to put in for the flavoring versus the vapes are disposable. They like the disposables because it's easy.
There's no
It's even
work.
concealed, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm learning this too, like a lot lately.
It's a lot.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that knowledge.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This has been a very informative presentation. I appreciate it. I guess the one thing that stands out to me, obviously with these increasing numbers, do we in Tiverton have something to be very concerned about with our students? That some action needs to take place? Or are we just pretty much seeing numbers that reflect, and I know Dr. Larkin asked this right off the top, right? Is this truly an increase in use or an increase in reporting?
I think it's both. I think they're both increasing in use and they're increasing in just feeling comfortable. And that ties into like the substance using peers. So if my friend's using, it makes it a little bit more accessible for other people to use or to maintain that. There's a really good job with the vape detectors here, and that's how I get a lot of like my diversion students. So the vape detector will go off, and then they'll be notified, and then I get a paper that I have a student that was caught, and then we work that way, or a group of students that way. But I think it's just a rising issue everywhere. I think this is just something that's a reality for adolescents, and I think the best thing for them is to just have a space that they have knowledge about it. So like more of me, more of just like the education, and they just don't even know what they're smoking, and parents too. I have a lot of parents that tell me like, oh, well, like I smoke weed, so it's fine. Or, I smoked weed back then, it's okay, but they're an adolescent brain. So if you're an adult, you can smoke weed and you can have a glass of wine or whatever, but the adolescent brain can't handle that. It's not fully developed. So it is very, very different than if adult was to smoke weed. So that's another big piece too, is like sometimes these kids just go home and you don't know what you don't know, right? So they're getting their information for their peers, and their peers are saying like, oh yeah, it's fine, it's this, it's that, and they get hooked.
And then my last question, do we still have a relationship with the Prevention Coalition? Are you working with them at all?
Yeah.
Do we have programs that, we're bringing to our schools to try to help these kids see the dangers of what they're getting themselves into?
Yeah, so I work really closely with Brian with the Tiverton Coalition, and he's awesome. He comes over and he'll help me, like he was here for a club fair because we do like the leadership group together. We did open house together where we brought Hidden in Plain Sight, which is awesome. It's like a mock bedroom, and it shows like where kids can like hide alcohol and weed and vapes, and it's very interesting. So he does that, and I know that they're hiring somebody to try to be here like in the Tiverton area full time and float, to kind of be like a me, but the prevention side of it for the coalition. So that's just another added piece to it. It's another person.
I think it's definitely an important partnership. Thank you. All right, that's all I had.
I got another question. So, we're at the end of October. This is a snapshot of sorts. I would think we would want to look at these numbers again later in the year, because if there is a real trend that I think would mandate some sort of intervention. And I think it would be helpful to know what comparator data there is across the state. I mean, we have a lot of times looked at Middletown and Bristol Warren as kind of demographically looks a lot like us, and see if they have the same sort of numbers, but they may not be capturing it because they may not have as skilled and affable a person as you are, so I'm not sure. But I would want to keep a very close eye on this. And maybe there is data from RIDE to inform some of this. Last question, have you come across Kratom yet? Use in the, so you're familiar with Kratom maybe?
No.
So Kratom is okay, maybe I'm going to educate people here. So Kratom is a leaf primarily raised in Southeast Asia and in traditional medicines is oftentimes used as a tea, and it's a stimulant. And it is actually unregulated and legal in many states in the U.S. It is not legal in Rhode Island. And the issue is that there's a lot of use, and you will get people to argue about it quite a bit, but at any rate, and I'll stop because I'm probably boring people, but the use is out of context, I think, in the United States. So you can get it in a lot of different varieties, and you can get it in a lot of different venues. So sometimes it's actually just in convenience stores and stuff like that. And so the use is kind of like out of the context of traditional medicine, and people use it in a lot of different ways, but it's a stimulant. So maybe something you want to
Yeah, I haven't heard about that, but now I'm like...
Kratom.
Okay, now it's in here.
There's quite a bit of controversy about it because there's an entire industry which is promoting its use.
Yeah.
So.
And to also tie in, so I work through a separate agency, so I'm not hired through Tiverton. I'm hired through Rhode Island Student Assistance Services. We're in about like 70 different schools in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And there is a student assistance counselor who I'm actually really good friends with who works at Mount Hope. So what I can do is just like connect with her a little bit more as the year goes on and just see like the numbers, because you mentioned that. The numbers usually always spike around the holidays, and then they calm down in the spring and then spike up before the summer.
Okay.
So I can definitely keep a lookout for that and just at least to compare to see.
Yeah, I mean, if that 69 becomes, 150 by January, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a problem, period, but it's, adolescence is in general a problem, so. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have fiscal '24 and fiscal '25 budget update. Mr. Andrade.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. As you all know, Tiverton School Business Office is committed to supporting continuous improvement, transparent communication, and fiscal responsibility. So we wanted to, this evening, share a FY24 and a FY25 Q1 update. Go to the next slide. So this is a preliminary result as we finalize FY24, including our fiscal year audit. As you can see, the budget to actuals were in total about 35.6 million compared to actuals that came in a little over 37 million, so about 1.5 million variance across the board. Couple comments on each line item. The first area, compensation, we had some increased earnings and compensation for stipends paid per contracts were the leading cause of this variance. Just bring to the committee's attention, as you guys know, these earnings are based on changes to employees' compensation that are contractually obligated or regulations within the state that we're required to pay to our employees. Employee benefits kind of speaks to itself, but obviously there was greater premiums, changes in benefit choices, and unemployment insurance claims spiked in FY24. Next is our professional tech service area. We had some higher than planned special education services, which many districts throughout Rhode Island is seeing these days. Property services, unfortunately, we had several replacements and repairs at basically all of our schools. These are fire alarms, security system devices, bleacher repairs, parking lot lights, multiple heating and boiler repairs, all crucial items to run the facilities. Other services, which is tuition to our other school districts, as we know, during the FY '25 budget, we have some increased tuition to other school districts. Supplies, there was some savings in oil and electricity. And lastly, the property, we had a E-rate cabling and hammer cage installation, two crucial projects that the school department had to take in order to advance the school district into the future. E-rate is actually, unfortunately, came at a cost, but it's a good, Danny could speak on it more, but it's a great component to the district. RIDE gives us back 60%, where the town pays 40%. So unfortunately, we had to take a hit in FY '24, but it's going to be great for the future of the district. So with that said, you might ask, how do we overcome this deficit? If you go to the next slide, there you go. I can't really see it too well. You guys have in your packet. I apologize for that. But the adopted FY '24 budget, just lays out the state and local sources, special revenue grants, local revenue, out-of-district tuition, CTE tuition, and other grants. And then, as you can imagine, we had to use the Medicaid reimbursement that the school committee approved within FY '24, along with a little portion of the fund balance, and then we used a heavy portion to balance FY '24 for the year. The next area, which I'll get to in FY '25, and I'll pause at that point in time just in case there's any questions. Similar, luckily we were able to use some, I'll start from the top. We had some state and local sources for, taxes and state aid, some additional special revenue grants, the usual out-of-district tuition, CT tuition, other local grants and revenue. And we were fortunate enough to have the East Bay Collaborative real estate proceeds. So there's an ongoing building sale right now for the East Bay Regional that we obviously dissolved with. We also have a Newport Collaborative final payment incoming. The town was graciously offered some technology and textbooks. And then we will need, I'll ask a little later for your consideration to apply incoming Medicare reimbursement in FY '25, along with using the remaining fund balance. I'll pause at that time before I get into FY '25. Any questions at this point in time?
Just off the top, and we may need to take action further down the road. I'm not sure if we're ready to tonight because we haven't finished the audit yet.
Correct.
But we did take a vote, assuming we would have fund balance available to us in FY '25,
Yep.
which is no longer going to be the case. So we will probably need to revote and take into consideration what we do know. Are you projecting that we will end up in a deficit at the end of FY '25?
As of right now, no.
Okay. As of right now, meaning, what could change that?
Extraordinary repairs, unexpected costs.
Okay.
The ever-moving special education, as you guys know, if one child comes into town from wherever, could change that.
Okay. Have you implemented any other cost control measures?
Yes, we have a spending freeze right now. We're only allowing very little spending just for core curriculum.
Okay. And hiring?
Hiring, we have a few open positions that are critical. Unfortunately, we can't really do a hiring freeze because these are mostly TAs that are associated with IEPs that we're actually using a vendor to support us, and I would actually rather hire someone who would be cheaper.
Of course.
Yep.
Okay. I'll allow others to chime in because I think I have a number of questions, but I do want everyone else to have an opportunity as well. Right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brennan, thank you. The first of many of these reports. So my couple questions are, now that you're month and a half in or whatever.
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
5 weeks, 2 days.
I cheated you a week, sorry. Seems like it's flying by. When you've done these calculations and put them on paper, and now that we're all seeing them, is this about what you expected? Where we'd be? Are we a little overspent? And this is an opinion. I mean, this is going from what you knew in May and June to now you're an employee and you're looking at this. Where do you think this fits, like when you put it together?
It was expected.
Okay.
You know, the school, you know, in my opinion, a little off topic, but my opinion is the school has a lot of improvements or strategic plans that are unattainable due to the budget.
Okay. When we push this forward every month and we keep looking at this, and I say we, hopefully, still here, would you say that we should be on target the rest of the way minus any extraordinary things that we can't expect? So I guess this is my question. Last year, at some point around the holidays, after the holidays, it was like, oh my God, right? It was an aha moment. I want to just ask, now that you've seen it and you've been entrenched in it, we're in a much better predictable path going forward this year versus where we were last year. I guess that's my question.
Can you elaborate a little more?
Sure. So I want to make sure that what we're looking at now versus 2 or 3 months from now won't be, oh my God, it's $1 million different, it's 800.
No,
I mean, the variance to you probably can't be all that much more from what we're going now.
Right now, I'm pretty comfortable where we stand.
Okay.
At worst case, maybe give or take 1%,
Okay.
which is 300
Okay.
and thousand.
Awesome, all right. And I'm asking some tough questions because last year I didn't ask them.
Yeah.
And when it fell in my lap, I felt helpless, and I felt like I should have done more. So thank you for being, forthright on that. And hopefully, if I'm hearing it, these conversations will have to be this way to make sure that we're all,
Yeah, and as I said earlier, just to repeat, as a district where, if there is an unexpected repair, we're finding a reallocation
Sure.
somewhere else.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're just at a point where we start to hit the core values. We're at the, very
Okay.
low point right now.
okay. All right, thanks, appreciate that.
You want to go?
No, go ahead.
So I like this format. Thank you. So of the areas that you closed FY '25, how much of that is one-time?
Basically, all the other area, which is 400,000 for the real estate proceed, 98,000, and the town capital, 286, and then incoming Medicaid and the remaining fund balance.
So $1 million
Yep,
more
yep.
Closed FY '25 or '24?
FY '25. So FY '24, we were going to use
Yeah.
we used fund balance, we have no fund balance left.
Right.
FY
Okay,
'25.
right, got it, okay.
Right,
Yeah,
we closed
probably
it.
about
But my
1
point being,
1.3
your
million or
point
so.
being is
Yeah.
1.3 million in one-time funds that will
So
not be
structural deficit.
available for FY '26.
And-
That
and
was
no-
my question.
And no fund balance.
And no fund balance. Yikes. Okay. That's my only point for right now.
Yeah, and I guess that was sort of my point, I guess restating it another way, is we made FY '24 a whole, but created a structural deficit then for FY '25, which we're able to close with some one-time money, but we go into FY '26 with a structural deficit, which we have been doing for several years. And although we thought we were finally getting rid of that with all the cuts from last year. And it's going to be $1 million, you said, or 300,000? $1.3 million.
$1.3 million, yeah.
So both, great. Okay. I just had a couple questions about some of the overages in '24. So the biggest ones were in personal services, which totaled to about 400,000, and one of them, the biggest driver there was health and medical premiums, which this is part of the problem about building a budget in January of '23. This started, and we got our premium notice, in May, right? So literally 17 months later, and it was higher than we projected. Okay. Because the other things could perhaps have been absorbed, or at least would not have been as painful. There's two things that were not budgeted at all. One was tuition services, it's 53216, and then right under it, student assistance. And I just got to ask, so that was roughly a third of what was the next sort of tranche of overages, which were the purchase services and employee benefits. So, and then another one was other technical services, and maybe you told us what that was. So so the tutoring services and the student assistance that came out to about $200,000, or about 40% or 33% of that overage. Do we have a sense of what that was, why that wasn't, but it doesn't look like it was budgeted at all. And those were things that we just encountered over the course of the fiscal year that, I know, Brandon, you weren't here, so maybe it's hard for you to answer that question.
Sarah and Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just items that were planned to be budgeted, but they just, I don't think they were, it wasn't expected to be as high as, maybe not as high, I don't know. Yeah.
You're right on target, Brian, and it's related to special education too, and things that come out of 504s and IEPs that happen during the school year. In the predictive analysis prior to.
Okay, so services that were mandated that weren't budgeted because they had not been mandated until you're in the middle of the fiscal year, which again speaks to the issue of trying to build a budget in January for the fiscal year that's going to start in.
And if I may, and just kind of shed, and this is something you all know, you track it historically, the increases of our budget, 1%, 2%, 3%, there always has been a margin in the typical public schools budget. So when we had these overages, we were able to cover it. But over the last 4 or 5 years, that margin just gets reduced. We're budgeting right to the actual. So when we have these things now, where in the past you could cover it, you don't have that opportunity anymore.
So, and I won't be here, but if I understand this properly, we will make FY '25 whole. We think we'll end it, but we will need to cut $1.3 million for FY '26 already. And if our state aid goes down again, you're piling onto that. And if you add additional costs through whatever it is, an IEP or, as you said, sort of a major repair issue, busing, premiums going up yet again, which I'm going to guess they're going to go up again, frankly. But so we're looking at again more cuts. Okay. And the elephant in the room, there's a limited number of options then. And it does come down to the number of buildings that we leave open.
You all set?
Do you want me to go on?
It's your last night. I'm going to give you a lot of latitude.
Well, I'm probably the one best able to say it.
Yeah. What I see here is that, special ed, we brought it in-house last year. And we've talked about this. We had projected it would be pretty much a net even break-even situation. But it does appear that we've experienced more expenses. Is that because we didn't understand what we would be experiencing, or is that just because the costs have risen while we've had it here?
I'll let Sarah respond if she wants, but just from what I'm seeing, it's unpredictable. You know what I mean? It's nationwide.
No, and
Yeah.
truthfully, we've talked about special ed costs every single year since I've been here.
Yep.
And I'm sure it was going on long before I got here. That special education is very hard to pin down. You know, you have your high-cost special needs kids, you have your back and forth, and then you have, you know, we heard a presentation this evening, and it all kind of dovetails in there, you know, you've got substance abuse out there in the community, you've got broken homes, you've got all kinds of issues that are really, you know, they trickle down into the fact that education is costing us more. And we want to be able to support that, but we're going to have to figure out a way to adapt. Because we can only spend what we have. It's really that simple. So thank you for putting this together. You know, well done. I think, you know, the approach that you've come up with is a good one. You have laid out what our sources of revenue are, which is something that we do need to understand as a committee. I will ask you, though, you do make mention of the entitlement grants, Title I, Title II, et cetera. $1.2 million, round numbers. How are those funds being spent? Because they're not part of the operating budget, or are they?
Nope, they're almost like their own grant ledger. We already have earmarked funds for those
And
outside of the general fund.
can we spend that money on whatever we like?
No, it's mandated by RIDE for certain,
Allowables.
allowables, yep, situations, yep.
Okay. Just want us all to be clear on that.
Yeah, the
It's
best one to
very-
understand is, you know, Title I, we use a lot of that 300,000 for teachers, Title I interventionists, you know.
Okay, okay. I think it'd be a good idea, again, it's same thing with Mike, right? You may be looking at 3 out of 4 different faces in a few weeks.
I'll be here.
That's why it's a 3 out of 4. But I would suggest that you plan on maybe doing a little bit of an education for the committee on what some of these grants really are,
Yep.
where they're coming from, what they're used for. I know, you know, Sarah, you have a long history with that, to, you know, make sure that the committee is well versed in this, and the community as well. So, I don't have any other questions on that. Did you want to speak to the FY25 proposed budget?
Yeah, just kind of, if you could go to the next slide, Danny. Oh, back one. So, as you can see, just, you know, keys in on our discussion is, I'll just go to the last bullet point, is we've spent 10% through Q1, which is basically July through September of '24, compared to 17.2% in the prior year at the same time period. So we're definitely doing, you know, we're definitely handling the situation the best we can with spending freezes and whatnot for, to handle the variance and reduce any deficits at the end of the year. Any questions on FY '25?
Can you just, Brendan, so do the administrators, do they have to come to you? Is that how, like, are you signing off on stuff? Is that where the control is?
I sign off on every requisition, yes.
Oh, okay, good,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
And I know, Mr. Dakotas, you're familiar with this, as we have worked in the policy subcommittee, and we'll go through a couple of policies tonight, but we do have one policy that unfortunately we didn't get to finish in time before the election, so I put it on hold until after. But it is aimed at closer oversight of the spending, and that's going to be something that we develop with you. You know, I understand there are system limitations, so we're going to try and figure out a way so that the, you know, the committee is very well knowledgeable of where we are each and every month as we move forward this year. Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? Mike?
My comment would be, thank you for being so well prepared. Keep it coming.
Yeah, great job. All right. Next
quick,
up.
Can
Yes,
I
Deb?
ask, are we, now that we've seen these, we're okay with these, are we going to make these available on a website to the council? How are you doing that, Brendan? What's your approach to that? What are your thoughts?
I would be very happy to share the summary with the council to see where we stand with every month going forward. I can share Q1 to date and then monthly going forward.
And we haven't traditionally, I don't know if we've put it on a website, but I don't know if we maybe think about having a financial website somewhere that people can just go look at these. I mean, certainly they're here, they're available in our packet, but maybe think about having somewhere we can.
We have a financial section. We post a budget.
Oh, we
there.
do? Okay, perfect,
We can
Peter.
have the updates there.
Thank you.
And we have asked budget to actuals be presented to us monthly
Oh,
in
yes.
the past, and we probably need to be more scrupulous about, well, not we, you need to be more scrupulous about, and we need to, make sure that we're doing it each month, given what we're looking at.
Okay, we all set, guys?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan.
All right, the next three items on our agenda are first read of three policies that we are putting forth this evening. We had intended to at our last meeting, but I had to scrap it, but we're going to look at this tonight. So the first one is Policy 310. Fiscal management's a policy that's been in place since 1994. And so we felt at a minimum that it, needed a revisit. What we are proposing to do is to just make some wording changes. You see it red struck out, so we start with striking out the word board and keeping the word committee. And then under plant and operations, we strike out the responsibility line and we indicate that it is the building principal, and that is by law. And then the building principal, again, we're striking out building administrators and naming building principals who will promote the safe and healthy environments in our schools. And then lastly, we're striking out the word board once again, just for consistency purposes, and because we do normally use the word school committee as opposed to school board. So that is policy 310, first read. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. The next one we have is policy 331, budget statement. And again, all three of these are finance related. 331 was adopted back in 1994 as well. Speaks to the budget statement and the way that the town at one point used to operate, right? We used to have the financial town meeting and all of that. So, the language in here was a bit outdated as well. So we're striking out the word, the opening statement to say that a brochure to describe our budget. Clearly, we're not producing a brochure any longer, but we are proposing a budget for the following school year, and that language is already there. And then we're, again, striking out any references to the brochure that may have very well have been something that was generated long before any of us was on the committee. And then lastly, the brochure, and I actually see another spot where we should have struck it. At the beginning of the 4 bullets, it says the brochure shall contain. I would say the proposed budget shall contain instead. I'm just noticing that now. It speaks to the summary of the expenditures, the summary of expenditures by major budget categories, and brief explanations for any significant changes. We are striking out the last bullet, which is a letter of transmittal from the school board to the voters commenting on the budget, because clearly we don't put the budget forth to the voters. So those are the changes we're recommending, and Mrs. Krager, you'll take note of that one additional strike before we put it on second read. Thank you. And then lastly, the spending plan, policy 332. The recommendation here is to delete this plan. It is the verbiage here is repeated in another policy we have, so this is duplicative, so the recommendation is going to be to delete this one in its entirety. Are there any questions on that?
Is that the policy that's coming?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I can't remember the number of it. Is it 334? It's been a few weeks since we looked at it, but yeah, it is in that one. Okay, that's what we have for first read on the policies. If we have any other comments on that or any other input from committee members, please do get to the superintendent with your recommendations. So that takes us down to item 7 on our agenda, Tiverton High School data presentation. Mrs. Craven.
So, Danny, do you have a? Thank you. I'm going to share with you the recent test results and department action plans for SATs, PSATs, advanced placement exams, and the next generation science assessment. So the SAT school day exam is administered in the spring of each year to grade 11 students. These results depict Tiverton scores for all students who were present on that day. If a student was absent, they would be administered a makeup. Based on this, 128 students sat for the exam, and you can see that Tiverton exceeded state average scores in both evidence-based reading and writing and math. Evidence-based reading and writing by 5.6% and math by 5.1%. Very sensitive. So I'm pulling data from the College Board. I pulled two different sets of data. Comparatively, Tiverton's mean total score exceeded both the state and global testing mean scores, with Tiverton's total score being 967, the state 918, and the global mean of 952. And then I further broke it down and pulled reading and writing and math separately. For the reading and writing section, our mean score is 497. The state is 469, and the global testing mean was 485. For math, the school mean score is 469, the state public score 447, and the global testing mean is 466. So you can see based on this data that Tiverton students are falling in line with or better than other students who took the same exam across the nation. When we examined school day scores from 2020 to 2024, while we exceeded the state average by 5%, the total mean score did dip by 5 points. This is difficult to compare as the test is now in a digital format. And last year was the first year of the test being administered digitally. So many districts across the state of Rhode Island also saw this dip. So now I will review PSAT 10 results. The PSAT is administered for Tiverton and again exceeded the state average scores in both evidence-based reading and writing and math during the spring administration. The spring PSAT is also a mandatory state test, as is the SAT. 97 students took the PSAT in grade 10 of last year. Again, when I pulled the College Board data for the PSAT grade 10 spring administration, Tiverton fell above the state benchmark, but below the global benchmark. The total score for Tiverton was 883, the state 866, and the global mean was at 901. For reading and writing, Tiverton students had a mean score of 460, with the global score of 462. However, the state mean score was 447 for the PSAT 10 test. In the area of math, Tiverton students scored a 423, which is above the state score of 419, but below the national average of 439. So you can see we have some work to do there. However, comparatively, our scores, you can see, are not moving much at all. So we are holding our own when compared to prior years, but we do have, as I said, some work to do, and I'll go over the action plans of how we're going to accomplish that. PSAT 8-9 is new to Tiverton High School. The test can be administered in grade 8. We administered in grade 9. The first year of administration was last year. As you can see, these results show grade 9 students falling below the state and global average in reading, writing, and mathematics. To combat this data, we as a school have created action plans, as I said, to improve scores in the areas of need. And it was important to get a baseline in 9th grade because RICAS scores are our current baseline, but it really doesn't give us much in terms of when it relates to the PSAT and SAT examination. However, before I review the action plans, because we always want to know comparatively how we do across the state of Rhode Island, but in neighboring districts. So I know this is very hard to read. That's why I'm citing all of the different score values. You can see how Tiverton fared amongst neighboring districts. 55.6% of Tiverton High School students are proficient in ELA. Bristol Warren came in at 68%. East Providence, 42.9%. Middletown, 52.9%. Newport, 37.3%, and Portsmouth at 69.9%. We also always compare ourselves to Barrington, just to get a comparison, and their proficiency number is at 82.6%. But you have to take into consideration in Barrington, 305 students sat for the test. It's very different from the number of students we have sitting for the test in Tiverton.
Before you go any further, could you repeat the stats? Because I don't see this in our package.
Sure. So Tiverton had 55.6% of the students were proficient in ELA for the SAT. East Providence, 42.9. Middletown, 52.9. Newport, 37.3. Bristol Warren, 68%. Portsmouth, 69.9, and Barrington is at 82.6% in English language arts.
Thank you. 55.
So let's look at mathematics. Same comparison. 28.8% of the students are proficient in mathematics in Tiverton. Bristol Warren's proficiency percentage is 30.8. East Providence, 11.1, Newport, 11.8, Portsmouth, 42.4, and Barrington is at 67.6%. Again, from schools to school, the number of students who sat for the SAT does vary. The NGSA is the Next Generation Science Assessment, and it's administered to grade 11 students at Tiverton High School. Our scores do look good. 41.7% of our students are proficient. Bristol Warren had a percentage of 58.8. East Providence, 21.5. Middletown, 34.1. Newport, 26.5. Portsmouth proficiency percentage was 65.8, and Barrington came in at 64% proficiency for the Next Generation Science Assessment. So now, what are we going to do about it, right? Because that's the next big step for us as a school. Each individual department sat as a professional learning community and created an action plan. And with that action plan, we targeted the areas of concern. We created the plan as to what we were going to do to combat those areas of concern, and then how we were going to monitor the progress that the students were making. So based on our data analysis, areas of concern across the school in PSAT and SAT for evidence-based reading and writing are analysis of informational text in science and social studies, and the identifying identification of words in context. That was another area that we came across as, we identified as an area of concern. So in English language arts, our action plan focuses on vocab exposure, SAT strategies, and comprehension of text structure. Standard English conventions is also a targeted area. We did see some students struggle in that area as well. For math, the areas that we identified when disaggregating the data were algebra, skills, advanced math, and again, data analysis. The department action plan includes a push for more algebra skills with a class in basic algebra being taught at the high school currently, SAT practice tests, and Khan Academy, which is also a series of online formative practice assessments, which is a solid plan for progress monitoring. I'm not going over every detail. I'm just going over the highlights of the action plans themselves. Science, analysis questions in science, information and ideas, and again, words in context, which is referred to as craft and structure on the examination. Since analysis in science is a concern, as well as algebra, our science department is implementing algebra-based activities with questions that focus on data analysis from lab experiments. For the next generation science assessment, science teachers will implement interim assessments 3 times a year. And core and elective classes will focus on the implementation of more informational writing. The progress monitoring for the NGSA interim assessment results will be analyzed in professional learning communities, as well as PSAT and SAT science analysis questions. Our Fine Arts and Careers department, we broke down by department: computer science, tech education, visual arts, and music. It's also integrating activities that will support our need for more teaching of words in context, analysis of informational text, and graphic interpretation. These results will be monitored during 6-week intervals, and each co-curricular teacher has a plan to score writing during PLC time for calibration. Our history department, again, areas of concern: historical analysis and writing to inform and explain. They will focus on historical analysis. Again, they'll also monitor progress every 6 weeks and make adjustments when necessary. That's the cycle of continuous improvement, right? Execute, and then reflect, and go back if necessary. Our World Language Department is also contributing by focusing on, again, analysis of informational text and words in context. They too will use pre- and post-testing data to determine growth. It is important to note when I talk about the individual departments that these plans do not interrupt the scope and sequence of the content in which they teach. For example, in World Language, the words in context will be the language in which they are teaching, versus like English language in addition to the other building activities that they're using to focus on the language being taught. Physical education, words in context, applying real-world applications for information and ideas, and writing to inform and explain. Every teacher's SLO is vertically aligned to the superintendent's strategic plan and the Tiverton High School Improvement Plan. So when I went through these action plans, you can see the redundancy of the areas of concern, and those areas were identified when we pulled apart the data, essentially. That's why you see that repetition in every single action plan. So I can pause here before I cover advanced placement scores and ask and answer questions, or I can continue.
Madam Chair?
Sure, Mike.
Thanks. The tests are taken last year, 24. So at this time, October?
Yes, it's coming up.
About a year ago.
Yes,
Thanks.
absolutely.
One of the questions I was going to ask is, are all of these action plans integrated with these school improvement plans that we just, it seems as though, we're seeing more reason for those plans now, and I want to make sure that looking back, that,
Yeah, we are absolutely vertically aligned, and that's why the student learning objectives for the teachers were written that way as well. So we all have the same goal, like the strategic plan has us increasing test scores by 5% a year over the next 3 years, right? That's the strategic plan goal. My school improvement plan also highlighted that goal, and when I presented my school improvement plan, I wrote that we were going to have action plans in each department, and now I'm just highlighting what those action plans look like.
okay. And are you and your faculty confident that these plans will, and I understand standardized testing is just one piece of a student's performance. I get it. But it is a piece. And are you confident that these action plans will indeed result in even small improvements?
Well, that's why we progress monitor, right? We want to make sure we don't wait until the end of the year to finally identify in a summative assessment that these action plans did not work. So every 6 weeks, we do the progress monitoring, so we have to make shifts if necessary. If the students aren't making academic progress, then we have to start a new plan, basically.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, if I can. So I'm a little confused. So the proficiencies are derived from the SATs?
The benchmark of the SAT.
The benchmark, okay. So there seems to be some discordance between kind of being at or above the mean and yet not so great proficiency data, I'll put it that way.
Right.
And so that, to me, there's dissonance there. The second question is you alluded to the numbers, because the scores, the proficiency scores are all over the place.
Right.
Across communities.
Absolutely.
And even within Tiverton itself.
Right.
And I wasn't, because we don't have that data in front of us, so, and maybe you would want to bring that back so we can look at it again, or you all can look at it again. I keep on falling into that trap. I could be appointed, yeah. Anyway, you're distracting me. So they're kind of, you alluded to the fact that the numbers of students taking a test, you sort of statistically reduce the power of the observation, right?
Yeah, and in many ways, because the percentage is obviously going to basically
Right.
vary based on the number of
So
students
if your
sitting
10
for the
smartest
exam.
kids take the test,
Right.
your
Right.
proficiency's jacked up.
Correct.
If you send the bottom of the class to take the test and you exclude the top 10%,
Right.
you're gonna, sort of your scores are gonna not look so good.
Right.
So the percentages tell you one thing, but I'm curious, do we know how the absolute numbers, sort of the power of the observation, if you will,
Right.
how that is varying between communities and or between this particular
Yeah, I can
snapshot
certainly go
for us?
back to the College Board and see if they break it down that way. This information, the reason why it wasn't included in your original packet was because RIDE just released the new scores. And this
I
was
see.
pulled from the RIDE portal
Okay.
yesterday. And when I created this presentation, it was sent, they weren't
Okay.
public yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Can you explain the discordance between being at or above the mean and the proficiencies? I mean, you may have to look at it closer, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that and examine it more closely, for sure.
Okay. Because again, there's dissonance there for me anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to stress that, we don't want to teach to the test. We
Right.
teach to the standards, and the standards are on the test. I mean, it's really important that everyone get that information here tonight, because I certainly don't want the message to be, this is all they're doing at Tiverton High School, they're trying to get their scores up. No, we are a common core standard school. We follow the state requirements, and the requirements are on the test. So essentially, we certainly want our students to know and be proficient in what they are tested in our school, in the state of Rhode Island, but also across the nation. That's why it's a standardized test. It's a true benchmark.
Right. Well, yeah. And, certainly the two should have something to do with each other, the test and the curriculum, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise you're kind of living in some kind of netherworld. But, and then just casually observing that Massachusetts is kind of like going crazy over whether or not they should make MCAS a requirement.
A requirement, I know.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they did, and their scores were always better than Rhode Island's. So I'm sure Dr. Sanquioni could give us a lot of information on that, having lived in both worlds. But, is it necessary to make it a graduation requirement? You also have to take into consideration the fact that many colleges went SAT score optional. Right? So students, this used to be like really important, like your ticket to college, you have great scores, the better colleges. But when colleges and university made that decision, it kind of took a little bit away from the test and the seriousness of the test.
But aren't they coming back?
Yeah,
They are.
well,
That's why.
And you wonder who got on whose ear about that, too.
Exactly.
I mean, I can talk about the testing industrial complex in medicine, but then you'd really be bored.
Right.
So the same exists, I believe, in secondary education in the United States.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's coming back. Our career and tech students, we want them to sit. It's a state requirement that they sit for the examination as well. PSAT and SAT is an option. Our homeschool students are required to come in and sit for the test also. That is part of our homeschool policy.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else?
Okay, on to advanced placement score data. So 38% of Tiverton students who took an AP test at Tiverton High School scored a 3 or better. Scoring a 3 or better is considered passing the exam. I don't know if you can see these numbers closely, so I definitely will review the numbers for you. Before I go into the score details, it's important to note that the total number of Tiverton High School students who took an advanced placement class is now at 264. That's a real good number. The graph shows a steady increase as we believe all students should have access and opportunity to an advanced level class. It is kind of like our motto that all students who are planning on going to college, 4-year or 2-year college, at least have one advanced placement class experience during their time at Tiverton High School. If you look at 2018, I think we had 208. Last year we had 239, and now we have 264 students. I also want to make a note that we require all students to sit for the examination. If you take an AP class, you have to take the exam. I think I skipped one. Yes, I did. So, like I stated, we evaluate success based on students scoring a 3 or better on the exam. These results are then compared against Rhode Island and global results, as I did going over the SAT and PSAT data. I'll pause for a moment so you can review this data. Tiverton is the orange bar, Rhode Island is yellow, and the global percentage is brown. And there are obviously other courses that I will go over, but I just want to give you time to kind of digest what's here before I continue on to the others.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Sure.
When you say 264, that's 264 individual students. You don't count one student twice who's taking 2 different AP classes, right?
Nope.
Okay.
So that means that we have sophomores and juniors and, freshmen taking AP classes?
Freshmen or not. Some classes are offered, and when I go to the next slide, you'll see the AP Psych scores kind of have varied. We now have 2 sections. Sophomore students can take certain AP advanced placement classes, but not all. It's juniors and seniors primarily.
Does that drive, you think, the percentage that will get a 3 or better on the exam?
I think so, but I think it's good for kids to be challenged.
I don't disagree there, but it may change the pool of the results.
It certainly will.
Clearly, our strength isn't calculus.
Yeah.
Right. So the first slide I reviewed has AP English Language and Composition,
I've never used the calculator.
AP English Literature and Composition, AP Calculus AP Pre-Calculus, which we just started last year, and Advanced Placement Statistics. This slide gives you an overview of Advanced Placement Art, Advanced Placement Psychology, AP Biology, AP Chemistry, and AP Physics. I do want to pause when you get to AP Physics and see that 0%. We lost our physics teacher last year, mid-year, and we had a hard time hiring a physics teacher. The year before, we couldn't find anyone to take the position who was certified. So we had an online advanced placement class, which was extremely difficult for the students. And last year, Ms. Cusimano kind of did her best to fill in, but I think the students felt, at the end of the day, they sat for the test, but I don't really think they applied themselves because I don't think they felt strong enough based on the experience they had that year.
So this year, what's the situation?
This year, we have Mr. Ferris, excellent teacher. Students love him. I believe that score will be very, very good next year. And here we represent Advanced Placement United States History, AP Seminar, which was also new last year, AP US Government, Advanced Placement Computer Science, and AP Environmental Science, which was a new test at Tiverton High School last year as well. Okay, I'll pause again before I continue to the next generation science assessment results.
Do you have any trends for how Tiverton students are doing year by year?
How Tiverton students are doing year by year, I'm sure I can get that data and get those comparisons. I definitely can.
It's, measuring growth.
Mm-hmm.
I think is an important measurement.
In past presentations we've had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely can get that.
And I've certainly been up here long enough that I've seen some of those bio and chems. We've really brought those up.
Yes, we very much did. I mean, Ms. Cusimano, when I first got here, we had a conversation, and, she was disappointed in the scores that year, and she really worked hard to get them up. I sit down with every advanced placement teacher when we get these results during the summer, and at the beginning of the year, we sit down and kind of, again, look at what we can do to improve. And a lot of it is the College Board curriculum is online, and some students like to use the online platform, but some students don't. And so as I spoke with the teachers, I really felt strongly that we should continue to use the College Board platform, even though the students might not want or be comfortable with it, because everything's a digital test, and when you get to college, nobody's handing you a packet, right? So,
Where is the college world go? I know when my son was here, depending upon your scores, you got credit. When you went to college, you didn't have to take that course. Where is the college world with that now? Are they still accepting some?
they still accept it.
Okay.
If it's a 3 or better, and it does depend on the college.
Right.
Some colleges only accept a 5 as a score for credit for the general education, for the gen ed requirements during your freshman year. But, I can go from my own personal experience. AP US History, George Washington University, my son passed the exam. They gave him 6 credits for that test. So it does vary school by school as to what they will accept, but nobody takes less than a 3. That's why we consider 3 the passing score.
Yeah, and I know we, certainly as a district, I know parents that have experience with these AP classes, that's real savings.
It really is.
3 credits, 6 credits. I mean, so that's it's great for them, and we're challenging them, but, just going beyond, it really is a great savings when you're looking at, not having to take, 1, 2 courses.
I was just speaking during the building committee meeting to one of the parents that were there, and her student is looking at the possibility of graduating in 3 years from URI because of all the AP credits that she obtained from here.
That's
So
great.
it really does have an impact.
Yeah, it does. And you know, it's available to all, which is, you know, the other important piece to note. There have been conversations, like I said, we require all students to sit for the test. Some students sit for the test to get the college credit. Some students take the class because they want a higher GPA because it carries a heavier weight. Those students sometimes don't take the test as serious as they should, and that definitely impacts our final scores.
Can I ask about U.S. history? If 100% of Rhode Island students got a 3 or better, that would tell you that Tiverton students weren't counted in that 100%.
Makes sense.
How can that be?
Is that at 100%? I have to look at it. I don't think it's at
Something tells
100%.
me that.
it does look,
It does look like
If
that,
it's not,
but-
it's like 99.9.
Yeah, it does look like
And
that, but
then-
that's not the case.
Well, because I'm just struck by,
And you know what? It's
The
off on my
discordance
slide as
there.
well.
we're a tiny little percentage.
We're a tiny percentage
we're not that
off.
tiny, though. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, in general, most scores were not that far off the state. We, you know, again, we've got some good strengths, some concerning weaknesses. That one just doesn't seem to be actually mathematically possible, though.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at that data. But you're right, we have strengths, and we call them areas of concern, not weaknesses.
I think that's what I said, right? Concern?
No, you said weakness.
Challenge.
We call them challenges.
Challenge.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, moving towards the next generation science assessment results. As I said, that this is an assessment, a state mandated assessment for grade 11 students. For the next generation science assessment, our scores have improved. If you look at the data from 2021-22, we had a proficiency percent at 38, but in 22-23, we increased that to 46. And in 23-24, we saw an increase at 45.8%. And these numbers, again, are all above the state average. Okay, more questions if you have them.
Promise to shut up.
I think we had a very, I think it was a
There's a lot
great
of questions.
interactive
Thank you so
presentation. Thank you for
You're
being ready
welcome.
to take our questions. A great presentation. Work to do without a doubt,
Absolutely.
but that's what everybody's here for.
Right, and we have a plan, and we'll
challenge on
execute
and
that
let's do this.
plan, and we'll monitor whether or not that plan is working. But, you know, we are vertically aligned, and all of the teachers are working together towards the same goal, which is, you know, part of the strategic plan. It's great that, you know, during professional learning communities, they're all looking at the data, they're disaggregating the data, they're calibrating writing assessments with each other so that they have the same common understanding of what looks like a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1, et cetera. So it's a lot of work, but it's good work.
Well, you should be proud that we're offering all these AP classes, and we're having more kids take PSAT, SAT, and we're changing the norm that, you know, come to school, just take a regular class, right? GPA is 2.6, like, we can be better, and you're pushing the students to be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. They deserve it.
Thank you.
That's a good point, Mike. I'm glad you made that. The breadth of the classes that we're offering is really pretty impressive for the size of our school.
Yeah, small but mighty, that's what we are.
That's what I meant.
Thank you.
I thought so.
All righty. We'll continue moving on. Thank you, Mrs. Craven.
Thank you.
Last item under new business, Centegix badge safety alert. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it was a couple meetings past, a parent asked us to take a look at Centegix, and we did. Danny and I had virtual meeting with the company, and we'll review their system. It's an excellent product. What it is, it's a lanyard that every staff member wears, and at any point, that lanyard that is connected to our safety systems, locking our doors, or implementing a lockdown. So it's a time saver, and that's what it's based upon. Most of their clientele is in the South and in the West. They don't have any clients in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, or Connecticut at this time, so we weren't able to talk to anyone up in the East that is using the product. But again, you get a sense of what the product is as a video. If you wanted to see, we can make that available to you. The thing that's just somewhat of a dissuasion is, against where you want to put safety, it's a $41,000 annual cost, and that's for all 5 schools. So I provide you with that data. There's a couple pages in there that gives you a little more. If you want to see the video, we can show that to you or provide that to you. We've gone through our safety measures with you in the past, and if you want to review that again, we can do that. Our schools are safe. We've implemented every recommendation from the 2 companies that came in and reviewed our schools. So it's just balancing, how much you want to invest in this.
And how much we can invest.
Yeah, well,
Right,
yes. Want and can, 2 different things.
Madam Chair?
Yep, wait.
Thank you. So thank you for you and Danny for looking into this. I found, perfect timing, Danny. I found when the presentation was given, I believe it was by Shannon McNamara, I don't think we could put a price on safety, right? I think I'd like to ask a question of you real quick. And we have at least 3 people, 4 people here that are in the schools every day. And I don't know if you can nod or that. And so if you've looked into this, these 3 or 4 people that are staff, teachers, administrators, how would you feel having this? And how do you think your staff would feel having something like this?
I don't know. Yeah.
Don't be shy. I mean, we can get the video for everyone. Ms. Craven, you're not shy.
We do have, several security measures in place. I feel your sentiment in saying, you can never put a price tag on safety, and I do believe that it would make teachers feel more secure and members of the faculty and staff feel a bit more secure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I guess my question to the superintendent would be, do you think we could get that video out? We obviously would like to see it, and maybe the staff, and maybe you get some sort of feedback from staff, how they would feel. Maybe it's overwhelming, they would want something like that. Maybe it's very low, or, so I think maybe that could give us an idea.
I think starting here, if there is a video to be seen, why don't we look at it here? We will have our administrators here with us. And, certainly all staff is welcome to participate at this level. And if you feel there's the appetite to go back and ask your staff about it, I'd welcome you to do that. I also, will caution you, $41,000 a year in a budget that's already
Right.
very tight.
Well, I would say.
This is an operational cost that would be recurring
Yeah.
every single year.
I understand. So I would say this. So, I mean, the 5 of us don't work in the school.
Nope.
And I know we make a lot of decisions financially and policy, right? So, of course, we have to look at it, right? And I'm not saying we don't make the final decision. What I'm saying is just for me, and that's why I'm always looking at my peers, is if I had an overwhelming feedback back to us as a board, I would know how much 41,000 versus, what the.
Yeah, and so this is, this one product was brought to us by one parent. If you want to get into this, there's multiple competitors out there too that we should evaluate all of them
Great.
and their
So-
costs. So
okay, so that was
we
my-
just gave you a report back based on a request.
For that particular company. And I guess my last question would be, the sales part of this, whoever would handle this. I mean, wow, you don't have any business in the Northeast. How nice it would be to have someone, but we can't afford 41,000. I work in sales, but I'm just saying.
We play those cards.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
So, as the one person who will be here,
Hold on, maybe.
it's a guarantee.
I don't mean it that way.
But, I would like to see, when we build the budget, Peter and Brendan, these are the kind of things, that we need to weigh, we need to prioritize, we need to see this as an option. To your point, Peter, I can definitely see where something like this would be appreciated. But, look at, like you said, look at some other.
Well, if this is the course the school committee wants to pursue, we should go out to bid and let every competitor send us a
Agreed,
proposal.
and then we can, we can look at those things that we want to add, and we can pick and choose and weigh the, you can't put a cost on safety, but you can put a cost on safety. Everything comes at a cost.
So why don't I suggest, because we are looking right down the barrel of an election, that this be one of those topics that comes up immediately following the election for discussion, so that if the sitting school committee would like to pursue a system such as this and move forward with it, they can take a vote to move forward and ask you to go
Yeah,
out to
that sounds
bid
good.
and do the comparisons.
Yep, that sounds good.
I don't think it really is on us this evening to direct anything.
Will do.
I'd also like to point out, we do have a safety committee that's supposed to be meeting at a regular cadence, and I don't know if we probably are due for a meeting. And we had 2 different sort of safety audits. And I don't recall if, I guess I wasn't at the last meeting, or I wasn't at the meeting when this came up before.
Like, what else is on that list?
Yeah, I don't recall if this was one of the things.
It wasn't.
One of the more, so it's all about, again, talking about putting a price on safety. You're right. No one would want to think of it in those kind of transactional terms, but everything we do does come at a cost, and it is about, again, in an even grimmer term, it is about hardening a target, and that's why there were the recommendations were to put laminates on the windows that would strengthen the windows against an intruder, that there be more security cameras, that there be more, that there would be alarmed doors that were, monitored remotely. One of the more striking recommendations about it actually was, making sure that a classroom door could be secured in the event of an intruder, because that, there's post-event data behind that if an intruder comes to a door that they cannot get through easily, that is actually very protective. So anyway, those are my thoughts, but it certainly
Right.
is, I would encourage this, I would encourage the security committee to continue to meet, and there are, multiple members of that from the community and from law enforcement, and look at all of these things and go back and, kick that security audit again and see what's there.
Anyone else? Okay. I don't have anything additional to add to this particular conversation right now. Again, I do think it's best to have the discussion continue when we have the next school committee seated. Future meetings. We are currently scheduled for November 12th with the RICAS presentation. I will say right out that meeting is tentative, and it will be based upon how quickly the election is certified. 2 years ago, it took quite a while. I think it was Thanksgiving week that we were here. So we'll have to see how this plays out. I'm hearing that things may go a little quicker this time, at least locally. But I don't know if certain races could hold the whole state back or whatever. But from right now, we're scheduled for November 12th. And at that evening, we will have our RICAS presentations. I know that those scores have been released. They're out there in the community. I can imagine any number of us have taken a look at the data. I know I have. So I'm looking forward to having a lively discussion there at our next meeting. So that brings us to the end of our open agenda. We will now make a motion to move into executive session.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes?
I'm wondering if you would indulge me and allow me to make a
Oh,
statement?
absolutely. I
So,
apologize.
thank you, that's okay. Probably everybody's already heard enough from me, so feel free to nod off. And actually, the comments I'm going to make are, I've submitted to the Secana Times, and hopefully will be published as a letter to the editor, but, so if you're really interested, you could sort of refer to that and bronze it or put it up on a plaque or something. So tonight, I'm attending my last school committee meeting as an elected member. I'm incredibly grateful for the trust placed in me by the voters of Tiverton. And I'm also grateful for the incredibly hard work of our teachers, staff, and administrators of the district, as well as my fellow committee members, both past and present. Public service is frustrating, joyful, empowering, and bland, and so important all at once. It's been an honor to serve with my fellow citizens of Tiverton, and I'll mention them: Jan Burgandy, Jim Aruda, Carol Herman, Sally Black, Deb Palish, Diane Farnworth, Elaine Pavo, and Mike Dakotas. You have all taught me things even when you did not know you were doing so, whether by example or expression of an alternative view, or your insight into a particular problem, and I will always treasure those lessons in the time I have been allowed to work with you. So Mike, Diane, and Deb, I'm able to thank you in person. I'm sad that Elaine is not here. We have not always agreed, and you each may have been angry, perhaps really angry with me at one point or another. Of course, you join my immediate family in that club, with the exception maybe of the dog. The cat's not so much. But we've always worked collaboratively and respectfully as a body to achieve consensus and to map out a way forward. I'm incredibly proud that the school committee doesn't have, the school committee, we all have opinions, but we don't have factions. Deb, I think you were the one who taught me that the school committee does three fundamental things: hire the superintendent, set policy, and establish a budget. And we've had a lot of opportunity to talk about policy and budget tonight. But we also should remember, especially at a time of a hugely consequential national election, that the people who sit in these seats are also advocates, guardians, and protectors of our children. I think that was really clear tonight. So this is, of course, a charge in which the entire community must participate, but we remain on the front lines, shoulder to shoulder with teachers, administrators, and staff, and this should always be front of mind. So thank you all. I'm not going away, and you can always count on my support and loyalty. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
may I have the floor? Thank you. So I wanted to make this twofold. So the first, I wanted to say to Dr. Larkin, congratulations on graduating from the school committee. I know you've done this for 12 years.
Yeah.
I've found before I was on the school committee, you were always somebody that was willing to have a conversation. Back when I yelled at you in 2015 about all-day kindergarten, you answered my phone call. You spoke to me. I was just a parent then. I always found you to be entertaining, dry but entertaining. I laugh at your jokes. But all kidding aside, I know that I appreciate everything you've done, the work you put in, the talks we've had. You've been invaluable to the school department, and whether you know it or not, I think a lot of people respect you and look at what you do for the state now for public health. So I know that I'm proud. I know that I won't speak for my peers. I'm sure they're equally as proud. And I will say that in case of a selfish plug that I'm not at back, which could happen, that I appreciate everything as well for Deb and Jerry and Diane and Elaine, who's not here, and also everyone sitting to the other side. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
So, and we were going to hold off on this, but I think it's appropriate. We have the Tiverton Consolation Prize for you.
The official draping.
The official draping. I do want to thank you for your service. Mike, you put it very well. And Jerry, you've been with us for 12 years?
Yep.
So longer than, well, no, not longer than Deb. She just left.
No.
What can I say? But, you know, we've appreciated your leadership. We've appreciated your insight, particularly during the pandemic years. I think we couldn't have had a better person at our home, and we thank you very much. Wish you well when you're in your career and as well in your new town endeavors. You'll be taking a seat on the Charter Commission, so good luck with that.
Glutton for punishment.
We'll be there to be in your ear about charter changes. So I do thank you, and
Thank
here
you.
you go from the citizens of Tiverton.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I did not mean this to be about me, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Deb, you all sat right? Well, we can talk to Jerry. All right, back to business. I have a statement that any individual that will be discussed in executive session has been given advance notice and the opportunity to have such discussion in open session. So at this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to enter into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 to discuss administrator contracts. Do you have a motion?
Go ahead. You might as well do it.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Polish? Mike? Yes. I'm a yes. We're in executive session. Thank you, everyone.